Hello and welcome everyone to another weekly market commentary from StashAway. Of course, with us, our Chief Investment Officer, Freddy Lim. Freddy, Happy New Year's.
Happy 2021 to you, Philip, and to everyone else. I wish you all great health and great wealth.
That's correct. That's what we wish to everyone exactly. We have a pretty packed session today, Freddy. Obviously, first up, some market news or news in general. I know we're all sick of elections after the last year, but there is obviously a gigantic election race going on right as we speak still, right? There's still some counting to do in Georgia. It's important because, this might swing the Senate to either the Republicans or the Democrats, right? Can you give an update on this and also what your kind of thoughts are in whatever direction it goes? What market impact will it have?
Firstly, the Georgia election is confusing to many. It's a so-called runoff election, unfinished business from what we had back in November. And as the counting goes on, as of right now, all we know is that one of the two Democrats actually won a seat. And so that means the Republicans have lost one out of two. The situation is such that if the Republicans loses both to the Democrats, the Senate would then become a sort of a 50-50 situation. And by design, then any voting will be left to the Vice President, Kamala Harris, to be the swing decisive vote. So essentially, people think that this would make the Senate now be dominated by the Democrats. But this is actually not true. We are talking about a 50-50 situation with some sort of swinging rights by the vice president, right? In reality, parties and senators can still do what we call the filibuster, where they deliberately slow things down by bogging it with procedural meetings or further discussion and just and get nothing passed. That can still very well happen.
Yeah, it's still very much split as we can tell. The other news, obviously, we have 14 more days of Donald Trump in the White House, as long as far as we know. Who knows what's happened in the next 14 days? But obviously, he's been doing a lot of last minute, pardons and trying to make some more restrictions on companies, right? Also, this week we saw the New York Stock Exchange flip-flopping on delisting Chinese telcos, right, off the exchange. Where do you see this going, and how much impact does this have, like these last Trump fits that he's throwing right now?
You're right. There's been a wave of executive orders that Trump's been doling out. And the New York Stock Exchange debacle, the flip-flopping, is a result of what's gone on last month. Essentially, what happened was the New York Stock Exchange is supposed to delist any Chinese companies with explicit ties to the military in China. But they flop on that because, hey, there's a new sheriff in town. Why am I making a decision now? Why not wait for the new owner of or the White House to come in and let them decide whether to enforce it or not? Now, the same thing is happening today again. In the latest wave, Trump bans a number of Chinese payment apps. That includes Alipay, WePay, Tencent's QQ wallets, and even Cam scanners in the list. It didn't matter because it's supposed to take effect in 45 days. And by that time, it's up to Biden to enforce it. And legally, it will be challenged. And finally, in terms of the economics, just so you know, for companies like the China Mobile, one of the three telcos on the ban list before, only about 2% of their stocks is actually listed in the form of ADR, American Depository Receipts, trading in the US. Actually, 98% of it is still raised back in China. And as you know, the Chinese have 92 trillion yuan of domestic savings, they're well funded. So a lot of people who wants to worry about fundraising ability with all this debacle, US-China tension, you shouldn't. Um, it's true 22% of the stocks is trading in the US, but only 2% of it is actually issued in the US. So that is what's important.
Exactly. No, great updates there, Freddie. Before we get into the Q&A session, I know we did get a couple more questions from last week from our listeners. For everyone new to the segment, if you listen to us on YouTube or watch us on YouTube, feel free to put those questions in the comment section below. If you're listening to us via our podcast, just feel free to send us an email to podcast@stashaway.sg or .com, both work. So that way we can get your questions in as well over the next few weeks for Freddie and myself. Freddie, with that being said, first question from Louis T. More than 50% of holdings of KWEB, which is one of our Chinese tech ETFs that we use, are denominated in US dollars. Does USD depreciation affect the NAV of KWEB?
First of all, thank you for the question. It does raise an issue that's commonly asked, and the perception of it. You just gave me, Louis, just given me opportunity to clarify. Actually, 97% of the stocks are Chinese based, and 3% Hong Kong. The underlying exposure is 97% China and 3% Hong Kong dollars. And the confusion comes with some of the names. They do also list in the US in the forms of American depository receipts. So, for example, Alibaba's case is exactly like that. A lot of tech names actually uses variable VIE, variable interest entities and ADRs to fundraise from overseas markets. But the underlying business, if you look at the revenue models, is majority of it's in China. So you still have to go to the underlying sources of revenues, and that's where you are exposed. The denomination in USD is just a pass-through currency. If all else constant, nothing changes in the world, US dollar fell, the NAV of the fund will actually go up to offset it. So this is what I meant by denomination. And so denomination is not really an exposure.
No, great answer there, Freddie, because I think a lot of people will mistake that. So great question, Louis. Thank you as well for asking that. Last question for today, Freddie, and I know it's something we haven't fielded too much last year, but obviously when we first started, 2017, 2018, this was also a hot topic, and it's becoming a gigantic topic again, right? So JC Chu is asking, will you guys consider investing in Bitcoin in the future? I think this obviously is coming back because I just, spoke to my dad as well. And the last time he mentioned Bitcoin was in 2017, and he just mentioned it again. Obviously with the headlines, of getting all-time highs. Where do you see this for us and in general?
Well, I don't rule out, because in terms of blockchain technology, we don't rule that out because we're always on the lookout for new sources or new asset classes to track on the platform. But in terms of just looking at it as a particular coin, I think investors are better off having a cold wallet and owning the physical coins than trying to do it with an ETF, because it's actually quite one of the big reasons why we don't add it is because the ETF mechanism for Bitcoin or even cryptocurrencies in general not very ideal, because the tracking difference is actually can be very huge. I remember even the GTC a couple of years back at the last high traded at a 40% premium. Can you imagine when it was trading the ETF was trading at a premium of 40%? When it's 20K, you're paying 28K for it, right? So that's actually quite a dangerous thing to do. Until the situation improves or there are better trading mechanism to prevent that sort of situation from happening, StashAway is actually very careful with what we add to the asset classes we have. So I hope that clarifies the main motivation for not having it. But in terms of the real applications of the blockchain technology, we are actually more interested in that than the coin itself. And so stay tuned. Things are changing over time.
No, absolutely. Great questions, JC Chu. Thank you for that. It's the new year. I promised we will have some more webinars coming up again in the new year, and we do indeed. So let me read them out for everyone. So if you want to join one of our webinars to learn more about personal finances and investing, you may join them. So for Singapore, on the 12th of Jan at 7 p.m., we have our financial planning basics seminar. So it's great if you want to get started with your financial plan, New Year's resolution maybe for you. It's always a great talk. That's on the 12th of Jan in Singapore. For our Malaysian audience, we have on the 13th of Jan at 6 p.m. our personal finance basic webinar. And also now, since we're now fully available in the UAE, so for the MENA region, we actually on the 12th of Jan at 6 p.m. at Gulf Standard Time, we have How to Plan for Your Retirement, a great webinar for the audience there as well. So for all of those, there's links in the show notes below that you can click on. Otherwise, for people listening on our podcast, you can also go to our website and find them under Academy and sign up for them. We will see you there. And I'm sure Freddy and myself will be back next week, and we'll probably have a lot to discuss after the Senate race has shaken out as well by then, and we'll know more. So thank you very much for listening. Have a great start to the new year, and we'll be with you again shortly.
Ciao.
Bye-bye. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified whenever we have new content out for you. Also, don't forget to download the StashAway app. It's available in the Apple App Store as well as the Google Play Store. So you can start on your financial journey right now.